Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking a deep dive into excerpts from Charles Spurgeon's extensive commentary on four Psalms, Psalm 46, 123, and 121.
Yeah, this stack of sources offers a really rich exploration of some timeless themes.
Well,
How to find refuge when everything feels like it's falling apart.
mm,
What genuine, joyful worship looks like. The incredible comfort in seeing God as a shepherd.
right.
And, that profound assurance that comes from knowing God is your constant keeper.
So our mission in this deep dive is to really dig into Spurgeon's particular take on these ancient words, pull out the most impactful nuggets of comfort and insight, and sort of figure out what they mean for you right now in your own life.
Okay.
Let's unpack this and see what we find together.
Okay, let's jump into Psalm 46. Our sources introduce this psalm as, well, a powerful source of comfort in times of trouble. It's noted for its majesty and its ability to bring calm.
And Spurgeon immediately homes in on that very first verse. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. What stands out to me here is Spurgeon's point that the real security, the true boast, isn't in human power.
Right. Now, armies, not fortresses.
Exactly, but in Jehovah.
Yeah, he emphasizes that God is a vastly superior refuge to anything else we might trust in. And what's key for Spurgeon is the personal nature of this, the our and the is. God isn't just a theoretical refuge. He is our refuge, and not just in theory, but just now, right in the middle of whatever trouble you're facing.
He really contrasts this with anything else we might lean on, calling other refuges of lies.
Pretty strong language.
Yeah. He's saying God's power and protection are absolutely sufficient for any emergency. And history, the experience of his people, proves him to be a very present help in trouble.
So the core insight Spurgeon extracts from this first verse is that placing your trust in God's immediate personal presence is the only true and reliable source of security when trouble hits.
That makes the fearlessness described in verses 2 and 3 even more striking. Therefore will not we fear. The psalmist links the lack of fear directly to God's presence. Then comes this incredible, almost overwhelming imagery.
Yeah, the earth being removed, mountains carried into the sea.
Waters roaring, mountains shaking, it's intense.
And Spurgeon goes beyond seeing this only as, natural disasters. He interprets these as symbols for the most extreme forms of commotion imaginable.
Yep, what?
The collapse of nations, the destruction of families, even the intense persecution or struggle within the church itself.
Wow. So even when what he calls the worst come to the worst, when absolute chaos reigns,
Yeah.
the person who trusts in God isn't meant to despair or mistrust.
Right. He talks about confronting this level of terror with calmness, even a serene smile amidst the fury. Because, God is ultimately in control, capable of quieting the storm.
And then there's that fascinating word, Selah.
Ah, Selah. Spurgeon interprets this not as an exclamation of shock or dismay, but as a deliberate musical pause.
A pause. In the middle of all that chaos.
Exactly. A moment built into the song, the life song, for meditation. In the middle of the earth dissolving and oceans roaring, you pause.
It's a conscious choice then, not to rush, to sit down and wait in contemplation.
Contrasting sharply with speaking or reacting in haste, which he says can mar the melody of our life song.
So the takeaway here is that navigating chaos effectively requires intentional moments of calm reflection, not just constant reaction.
Makes sense. Then, moving into verse 4, we get a beautiful contrasting image with the river. Spurgeon sees this as divine grace, flowing smoothly, bringing life and fertility always full, never failing the river of the water of life.
It's a picture of a calm, abundant supply, quite different from the violent seas in earlier verses. And these calm streams make glad the city of God, which Spurgeon identifies as the church.
Right. He uses the analogy of an eastern city under siege. If its water supply is secured, it can hold out indefinitely. This illustrates how the church, relying on God's grace, is assured of a never-ending supply for all its needs.
And the crucial line in verse 5 is, God is in the midst of her. She shall not be moved.
Yes. His presence makes the church utterly secure, making the very idea of capturing it ridiculous, according to Spurgeon.
It's ridiculous, huh?
Yeah. He sees God helping from within, supplying needs, and from outside, dealing with enemies. And the help comes right early.
Right early.
Exactly when it's needed. God is never late, even if his timing seems, different from ours sometimes. His delays are wise, Spurgeon says.
Okay, so key takeaway from these verses. God's grace is the ever-present, calm source of life within the church, and his presence guarantees its ultimate security against all threats.
Right. Verse 6 shifts back to global upheaval. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved, nations in furious uproar, total confusion.
And God's response, it's simple yet devastatingly powerful. He uttered his voice, the earth melted.
Spurgeon is captivated by how simple the instrument is, just a word.
Just a word.
But how it can dissolve the stoutest hearts and annihilate armies. He connects this power to the incarnate word.
Oh, all right.
And he notes that sometimes divine power arriving can initially look like it's causing more confusion, but peace ultimately follows. The takeaway seems to be God's word is the ultimate power that effortlessly dissolves human opposition and chaos.
This leads right into the anchoring statement in verse 7, which gets repeated later in verse 11. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge.
Lord of hosts, that signifies God's supreme authority over everything, right? Angels, stars, elements, even human armies. He is our ultimate august ally, as Spurgeon puts it.
It's an august ally, I like that. And linking him to the God of Jacob personalizes it.
Exactly. It connects this cosmic power to the God who walked with ordinary, often struggling people like Jacob. Spurgeon says repeating this line emphasizes a precious truth we often forget.
So the takeaway, the God of all power, the ultimate ruler, is personally with us.
Yeah. And after witnessing God's power and judgment, verse 8 invites us to come, behold the works of the Lord, specifically the desolations he hath made in the earth.
Desolations, that sounds a bit grim.
Well, it's an invitation to look at the aftermath of God's intervention against evil and see his power at work. Spurgeon suggests looking at history, even current events, through this lens, seeing God ruling nations for the good of his people.
Okay, so like seeing the bigger picture.
Kind of. He points to ruined empires and cities as lessons, or even ruined historical structures in his own land as memorials of God's victories against opposition to his truth. And out of this, verse 9 emerges, he maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth.
So God brings peace by overcoming the opposition.
That's the idea. Quieting the tumult, crushing the powers that cause conflict, the breaking and burning of weapons symbolizes the end of hostility.
Okay.
And Spurgeon sees this as a spiritual reality now for believers and a promise of a literal, universal peace in the future. The takeaway. God is actively working in history, bringing his purposes about, and ultimately establishing peace.
And then the profound instruction in verse 10. Be still and know that I am God.
Yes, Spurgeon sees this as a dual command. For enemies, it means stop fighting.
Hold off, yeah.
And for believers, it means stop striving, wait in patience. It's about acknowledging God as the sovereign Jehovah.
And silencing both the boasts of the arrogant and the timid worries of believers by simply remembering who God is and what he has done.
Exactly. Spurgeon sees the lines, I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth as a bright prospect for missions and God's ultimate triumph.
So the takeaway, stop striving, quiet your fears, and just acknowledge God's ultimate power and authority over everything.
And that final Selah, after the repeated verse 7, reinforces the call to pause, lift up your heart, and rest in contemplating these truths.
Spurgeon ends this section with a challenge, which we can pose to you now. Is this mighty Lord of hosts, the God of Jacob, your refuge? Is there that personal relationship, that covenant?
Something powerful to consider.
Definitely. So carrying that sense of God as our powerful present refuge from Psalm 46, let's turn to Psalm 100, a vibrant call to joyful worship.
Right. Our sources introduce this as the Jubilate Deo, a psalm meant to be sung with a shout.
A shout.
Yes. Spurgeon immediately highlights that joyful noise in verse 1 as a glad shout, kind of like loyal subjects greeting a king. He frames worship not as a somber duty, but as a joyful expression.
It's a happy God being worshipped by a happy people. Cheerfulness is absolutely fitting, he says.
And the call is to all ye lands, because God's goodness is global and should be praised globally. The takeaway, worship should be a joyful, enthusiastic response from everyone, everywhere, to a God who delights in his people.
Verse 2 follows with, serve the Lord with gladness, come before his presence with singing.
Spurgeon insists on glad homage, not melancholy or, funeral solemnity, but like being welcome to a feast, a marriage feast, he calls it.
Coming into God's presence is solemn, yes, but not with fearful dread. And singing is highlighted as a joyful, devout way to approach God.
Yeah, something that anticipates heaven. Spurgeon even mentions how surprising it is that anyone would forbid singing in worship, referencing figures like Dr. Watts, the famous hymn writer who championed congregational singing.
Interesting side note.
Yeah. And the foundation for this worship is intelligent knowledge. Verse 3, know ye that the Lord, he is God.
You have to know whom and why you are worshiping.
Exactly. True wisdom, Spurgeon asserts, is in knowing God and acknowledging He alone is God.
And central to this knowledge is recognizing it is He that hath made us and not we ourselves.
This is the creature honoring the Creator, rejecting any idea of being self-made. Spurgeon echoes the phrase non nobis domine, not unto us, O Lord.
Now, Spurgeon takes a strong stance here, contrasting the ease of believing God made us with other ideas of origin.
Right. He suggests that believing life developed by a long chain of natural selections from floating atoms. Well, he says that requires far more credulity, in his view, than even believing in certain religious imagery he critiques.
So he's making a comparison to emphasize his point about faith in a creator.
Exactly. It's his way of underscoring his strong belief in God as the clear creator. And because he made us, we have this relationship. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture.
Okay.
This highlights the honor of being chosen and the privilege of being cared for, guided, and fed by him. Gathering around the great shepherd is, for Spurgeon, an act of praise itself.
He says the simple facts of God's mercy are profound poetry.
Beautifully put. The takeaway. Our worship is grounded in the intelligent knowledge that God is our sole creator and our caring shepherd, a truth that dissolves human pride and fosters gratitude.
Moving to verse 4. Enter into his gates with thanksgiving and into his courts with praise.
Thanksgiving is essential in public worship, like the incense in the temple. Spurgeon points out we should be thankful just for being allowed to enter.
Right. Access itself is a gift.
Especially now that believers can approach the innermost court, and the call is clear. Be thankful unto him and bless his name.
Praise with your heart and your voice. Focus it on God alone. Be thankful for everything in all circumstances and for all his attributes. It's quite comprehensive.
It is. And verse 5 gives us the glorious, enduring reasons for all this. For the Lord is good.
Simple but profound.
It sums up his character. He is gracious, kind, bountiful, loving. Spurgeon says if you don't praise the good, you're not good yourself. Goodness is the fundamental argument for joy.
Then his mercy is everlasting, his compassion, not just stern justice.
Mercy for his people, from eternity past to eternity future. A truly glorious theme for a song, right?
Absolutely.
And his truth endureth to all generations. He is faithful, his covenant never broken, a sure anchor in a constantly changing world.
Spurgeon sees this faithfulness as a basis for confidence, even against the idea that true believers could finally fall away.
Right. It brings joy to bow before one who never fails his promises. The takeaway from this section. The unchanging, infinite goodness, everlasting mercy, and enduring truth of God are the timeless, solid foundations for our unending praise.
After exploring God as our refuge and the object of joyful worship, let's turn to Psalm 23, arguably the world's most beloved psalm, famous for its deep comfort.
For sure. Spurgeon starts right with that iconic first line, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." He's struck by the condescension of the infinite God taking on the role of a shepherd.
David's background as a shepherd informs this deeply. He understood the needs of sheep and the shepherd's care. He likens himself to a weak, foolish, defenseless creature.
Entirely dependent on God. Spurgeon emphasizes that a believer isn't a wolf or a goat, but has a renewed nature and is God's object of property, bought at a great price.
Knowing that relationship is key to the confidence expressed.
Absolutely. And what really resonates is the noble tone of confidence. No if, no but, no I hope so, but affirm, the Lord is my shepherd.
It's a call to cultivate that assured dependence. And Spurgeon calls the little monosyllable my the sweetest word in the psalm. If he be a shepherd to no one else, he is a shepherd to me.
It's personal, and its present tense is. Whatever the circumstance, the believer is under pastoral care right now.
And the immediate, powerful inference from that, I shall not want.
You might lack other things you desire, perhaps, but you will not truly want what you need. Spurgeon says God is both able and willing to supply all needs, temporal and spiritual.
He uses the analogy of ravens being fed. Lilies growing. God's grace is always sufficient.
It's not about having everything you wish for, but being content because your needs are met. He contrasts the wealthy who may still want with the righteous who never do. A gracious spirit finds contentment.
And this isn't just for today, it's future too. I shall not want, even through hardship, old age, or death.
Right. Lack isn't their portion not because of their own resources, but because the Lord is my shepherd. The takeaway here. Because God is my personal, ever-present shepherd, I have everything I genuinely need forever.
Verse 2 paints this peaceful picture. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters.
Spurgeon sees two essential aspects of the Christian life provided for here: the contemplative and the active.
Okay.
Green pastures represents the scriptures, fresh, rich, never exhausted, finding rest and nourishment in God's promises.
And note, he maketh me. It's God who enables you to see the value of these truths and feed on them. It's a gift, something difficult for, distracted souls.
True. Then the active side.
Hmm.
He leadeth me beside the still waters. This is the journey toward spiritual maturity. Still waters represent the Holy Spirit's influences, cleansing, refreshing, fertilizing.
Still waters suggests the Spirit works peacefully, without ostentation.
Flowing deeply and secretly into the soul. Spurgeon quotes, "In sacred silence of the mind, my God I find." And the leading is crucial. We need his guidance. We can't go alone. God leads. He doesn't drive like the law might. He leads by love.
Right.
Key takeaway from this verse. The shepherd provides both deep rest and spiritual nourishment in his word, green pastures, and refreshing, peaceful guidance through his spirit, still waters, for the believer's journey.
Verse 3 speaks of restoration and guidance. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake.
He revives us when we're down, sanctifies when we've sinned, strengthens when we're weak. Spurgeon emphasizes that he does this. Human effort or just the word alone aren't sufficient without God's grace.
And he leads in paths of righteousness, plural. It's not about picking one commandment, but obedience driven by love for the master.
Yeah. Sanctification, being led in holiness, is presented as a sweet gift, a main desire of the believer, and it's done by grace for his name's sake, to honor God himself. The takeaway: God's own power restores our spiritual vitality and guides us faithfully in the way of holiness, all for his own glory.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting and deeply comforting, verse 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Spurgeon calls this an unspeakably delightful verse.
Understandably, it's been a source of immense comfort, sung on countless dying beds. Spurgeon breaks down, though I walk, as a steady, calm pace.
Not running scared.
No, knowing the road and feeling safe. You walk through, not in the valley, it's a passage, not a destination. Death is a porch to immortality, not the house itself.
The valley itself can be a place of quietness, often the last days being the most peaceful.
And crucially, it's the shadow of death, not death itself. The substance, the power of death, is removed. Spurgeon notes a shadow implies light somewhere, the light of heaven. A shadow can't harm you.
Like the shadow of a dog can't bite.
Exactly. The shadow of a sword can't kill. The shadow of death cannot destroy the believer.
I'll fear no evil. Spurgeon says this goes beyond evil having no power. It means the fear itself is gone. Jesus removed death's sting.
Right. The worst evils, he suggests, are often just shadows, imaginary. The psalmist is cured of fearing.
And the reason for this absolute fearlessness.
For thou art with me. This is the core Christian joy, the perfect comfort and security, like a child safe in its mother's arms during a storm. Having God's presence is having everything.
And thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. What about those?
These are symbols of the shepherd's authority and care, the instruments he uses to govern and protect his flock. Comfort comes from knowing God is in control, that the rod of Jesus is sovereign succor. Spurgeon contrasts this with Paul's view that to die is gain, showing how Psalm 23's comfort remains powerful.
So the takeaway from this pivotal verse: God's presence utterly removes the fear of death and all evil, and his sovereign care brings comfort even in life's darkest moments.
Powerful stuff.
Verse 5 brings a surprising image. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies.
Yeah, the good man will have enemies. Spurgeon says if we were friends with the world, we might wonder if we were God's friends.
Interesting point.
Yet there's this calm bravery eating a prepared feast, not a hurried soldier's meal, even with the enemy watching. Spurgeon quotes, "Let earth be all in arms abroad, they dwell in perfect peace."
Amazing peace. Then thou anointest my head with oil.
This speaks of daily spiritual refreshment. The Christian, seen as a priest, needs the unction of the Holy Spirit for service and enjoyment, needing to go day by day for new grace. A priest without oil lacks fitness, he says.
And my cup runneth over, more than enough.
Spurgeon shares the anecdote of the poor cottager with just bread and cold water saying, "What, all this? And Jesus Christ too." That's a cup running over. Contentment is the key, he says, the philosopher's stone, worth more than a kingdom.
So the takeaway: God provides abundant peace, spiritual refreshment, the Holy Spirit, and overflowing blessing, enabling us to feast securely and find contentment even surrounded by opposition or lacking material wealth.
Right. Finally, verse 6 concludes the psalm. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Surely. Or only goodness and mercy unmixed, Spurgeon says.
Like twin guardian angels, always following, through every kind of day, every season. Goodness supplies, mercy deals with sins.
And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. The believer is a son, not a transient visitor.
Right. Spurgeon sees the whole world as God's house for the believer now, and heaven is simply moving to the upper story, not changing company or location entirely. It's an eternal dwelling place.
So the takeaway. God's unwavering goodness and mercy are promised companions throughout life, leading to eternal security and unending communion in his presence. Spurgeon encourages us to truly dwell in the serene atmosphere of this blessed song.
Beautiful. Now, moving from the shepherd's constant care, Psalm 121 brings us another aspect of God's protection, his tireless role as our keeper.
It starts with the question, or perhaps a declaration, I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. Spurgeon notes it's wise to look to the strong for strength.
Right. Uplands offer a refuge from valley dangers, like flying to a mountain stronghold to escape. The psalmist looks away from trouble upward to God, who sees from high places. True help only comes from above. Looking elsewhere is pointless.
It's a resolve to lift your eyes with hope and confidence. These eternal hills can represent God's attributes, promises, or providence.
But what's interesting is Spurgeon also presents an alternative reading as a question. Shall I lift up mine eyes to the hills? Perhaps earth's highest places offer no shelter.
Okay.
And that leads to the deeper question, whence cometh my help?
And the answer arrives powerfully in verse 2. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth.
Exactly. We need help that is powerful, effective, constant, and available now. Our hope is in Jehovah, the Creator.
Help is already on its way, never too late, equal to any need, because heaven and earth are at his disposal. Spurgeon suggests God would sooner destroy his creation than let his people be destroyed.
Wow. We must look beyond creatures to the Creator, the takeaway. Whether seeking strength or questioning its source, the answer is clear. Our truly effective help comes only from the Almighty Creator of everything.
Verses 3 and 4 really home in on the theme of God as a keeper who never rests. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep.
Though life's paths are dangerous, we won't be overthrown. God prevents us from sliding. This preservation isn't just physical, but for heart and mind too. Spurgeon notes this can be read both as a promise and a perpetual prayer.
And the reason for our safety is the keeper's vigilance. We need someone watching day and night.
Yeah, not a step is safe without his eye. God is our constant convoy, our bodyguard. We are safe even when dangers are wide awake because our preserver is never tired, his watchful eyes never close.
The repetition in verse 4, emphasized with behold, underscores this incredible truth. He that keepeth Israel is a glorious title.
Neither deep sleep nor lighter slumber, guarding against every unseen threat. Spurgeon contrasts this with times Israel did fall asleep spiritually, but God was awake, like with Jacob at Bethel. The meaning of keepeth is rich, like guarding treasures, garrisoning a fort, protecting a king. Verse 3 is a prayer, verse 4, the powerful answer. It's keeping for the individual thee and the whole community, Israel. Mercy to one is a pledge to all. This psalm is like safe conduct for a pilgrim.
The takeaway from these verses, God is a tirelessly vigilant keeper, awake day and night, personally and perpetually guarding his people, preventing them from being overthrown.
Yeah. Verse 5 explicitly names him again. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. Jehovah is thy keeper.
Spurgeon calls this a mint of meaning.
Yeah, a glorious person, taking on a gracious office, applied personally to thy life right now, bringing firm assurance. Appropriating this truth leads to fearlessness.
And the shade upon thy right hand means protection from intense heat or glaring light.
Right, protecting the most active part of you, your right arm. God is like a right-hand attendant, placing you in comfort and safety.
He contrasts this with the adversary, Satan, often depicted at the ungodly's right hand.
Right. God is as near as your shadow, and you are as safe as if guarded by angels. The takeaway. Jehovah himself is your personal keeper, always by your side, providing protection tailored to your needs and activities.
Verse 6 expands the protection. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night.
Shelter from these powerful forces, covering dangers both day and night. Spurgeon sees this protection operating on multiple levels: literal, heat chills; mystical, dangers from bright or dim spiritual ideas,
Oh, interesting.
spiritual perils of prosperity or adversity, and eternal protection related to glory or judgment.
So day and night covers all time. The protection is ceaseless. All evil is covered under sun or moon.
And the point is that believers might face the same circumstances as others, but God removes the power of these forces to smite or harm them. Instead, they can be enriching experiences. God gives the precious things of life and removes the bale and curse that might otherwise accompany them.
The takeaway: God's keeping shields you from every conceivable danger that operates under the sun or moon, day or night, turning potential harm into something that cannot ultimately smite you.
Verse 7 broadens the scope even further. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul.
Spurgeon notes how the word keep or preserve resonates throughout the psalm. God keeps his own from all evil influences, operations, and even evil things themselves.
It's a sweeping, comprehensive covering. And it's God himself doing the keeping, not delegating it. And it's the unique, personal individual being protected.
Then he shall preserve thy soul. Spurgeon calls this the soul of keeping.
Yeah, if the soul is kept, everything essential is kept, including the body as its necessary casing, like the kernel and the shell. God is the sole keeper of the soul.
Keeping it from what?
From sin's control, errors, infection, despair, pride, the world, the flesh, the devil. It's kept for better things, in God's love, for the eternal kingdom. What harm can possibly come to a soul that God himself keeps? Nothing essential.
The takeaway: God's keeping is total, protecting your entire being from all evil, with a special central focus on eternally preserving your soul.
Finally, verse 8 brings this keeping into the realm of daily life and stretches it into eternity. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in from this time forth and even forevermore.
This covers everyday activities, leaving the house in the morning, returning in the evening. It also symbolizes life's major transitions.
Right. Youth heading out, the end of life coming in. Every exit and entrance is under one continuous protection. Spurgeon highlights the threefold Jehovah shall keep in verses 5, 7, and 8 as a powerful Trinidadian seal designed to utterly slay fear.
Anxiety cannot survive this repeated promise.
Exactly. And the keeping is eternal, from this time forth and even forevermore. This guarantees final perseverance and a glorious immortality.
Under this promise, you can confidently go about your life, like a pilgrim on a journey or a soldier in battle, without trembling or dread.
Yeah, nobody's as safe as the one God keeps. Nobody is in more danger than the one who relies on themselves. A special security is promised for every change in position.
It's a keeping that perseveres as long as time lasts and beyond. Glory to the keeper, who becomes ever more endeared to us as we become more aware of our own weakness.
Our source closes this section with Giebel's beautiful summary. God keep thee safe from harm and sin. Thy spirit keep. The Lord watch o'er thy going out, thy coming in, from this time evermore.
So what does all of this mean for you? We've taken a deep dive into these specific psalms through Spurgeon's eyes, finding deep anchors for our souls in God's nature and his unwavering promises.
We've seen God presented as your immediate personal refuge in absolute crisis from Psalm 46, the sole object of your joyful, intelligent worship in Psalm 100, the deeply caring shepherd who meets your every need, even walking through the valley of death with you in Psalm 23, and the tireless, sleepless keeper who watches over your every step forevermore in Psalm 121.
What's particularly striking is how these ancient texts, illuminated by Spurgeon's insights, speak so directly to our modern need for security in a chaotic world, a compelling purpose for living, comfort in our fears and sorrows, and reliable guidance for our uncertain paths.
And this raises an important question for you. If God is indeed your constant, tireless keeper who promises to preserve your going out and your coming in from this moment on forever, how should that incredible promise fundamentally transform the way you experience and react to the anxieties, uncertainties, and potential dangers that you face in your own daily life and future journeys?
Something to keep contemplating as you continue your own deep dive.